I'm Eric Anderson. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, Mayor Bob Filner says the city budget is about to get a double whammy for tens of millions of dollars. We'll tell you why. And the president pledges to send Congress proposals to reduce gun violence. Also tonight, this has been a record year for smuggling by sea, and stopping the smugglers is becoming more dangerous.
And I'm Peggy Pico. Also ahead, Public Radio's lexicon. Grant Barrett joins us with his list of new words from 2012. But first, federal nuclear regulators demand more safety data from Southern California Edison. We'll have details on the latest public meeting over the proposal to restart the plant. And the largest solar plant of its kind in North America officially opens right here in San Diego. KPBS Evening Edition starts now.
KPBS Evening Edition is made possible by Joan and Irwin Jacobs and by
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Dwayne Brown is off tonight. Mayor Bob Filner says San Diego's budget could take a $41 million hit next year because of two separate decisions made this week. One involves implementing pension reform. Directors of the city pension system are putting $27 million in upfront costs into next year's budget. Voters approved pension reform back in June. City leaders say making the changes will cost the city more than it saves for the first couple of years. And because of that, Filner says San Diegans should lower their expectations about things like street repairs or expanded hours at the library. The other decision involves redevelopment. The state has denied funding for numerous projects in San Diego. KPBS Metro reporter Katie Orr explains.
The state will not allow San Diego to spend $4 million in redevelopment money on a permanent homeless shelter. It also nixed a $20 million affordable housing development and nearly $5 billion in additional projects, including cleaning up a downtown site for a potential Charger stadium. Last year, the state legislature eliminated redevelopment agencies, but said the agencies could continue funding projects that were already underway if the state approved them. City officials say they'll either have to accept this latest blow or file a lawsuit against the state. But not everything got the budget axe. The state okayed spending about $21 million on the North Embarcadero Visionary Plan, which aims to beautify the area around the Broadway Pier on Harbor Drive. Katie Orr, KPBS News.
The standoff over the fiscal cliff continues in Washington tonight. President Barack Obama calling on Republicans to peel off the war paint, and House Speaker John Boehner calling on the president to support his Plan B, which has tax hikes for million-dollar earners. The White House has already rejected that plan. 5 days after the deadly shootings at the Connecticut elementary school, the president is promising to send Congress new proposals to reduce gun violence. The story from Mark Smith of the Associated Press.
In the same briefing room where he fought back tears over the slaughter of children at a Connecticut elementary school, President Obama said the time has come to act on guns and the havoc they can wreak, naming Vice President Biden to head a task force to draw up plans for curbing not just mass shootings, but the daily deaths on America's streets.
We won't prevent them all, but that can't be an excuse not to try. It won't be easy, but that can't be an excuse not to try.
Obama has long favored reinstating the federal ban on assault rifles and limiting high-capacity ammo clips, though he expended little capital on either in his first term. But he stresses this task force will go beyond gun measures.
We're going to need to work on making access to mental health care at least as easy as access to a gun. We're going to need to look more closely at a culture that all too often glorifies guns and violence.
And he wants a blueprint from the panel by next month, in time for his State of the Union speech. For top lawmakers, the immediate issue is assault weapons, and they're not waiting.
We must take action to protect our children from harm.
When you talk to people, there's anger behind their voices. Why are we allowing this to continue to happen?
I've been a hunter all my life, and there's no reason to have a magazine that holds 30 shells.
Talk like that has Obama thinking the time is finally ripe.
The vast majority of responsible, law-abiding gun owners would be some of the first to say that we should be able to keep an irresponsible, law-breaking few from buying a weapon of war.
He says if Washington shows just an iota of the courage the teacher heroes of Newtown showed, it can make America a safer place. Mark Smith, The Associated Press, the White House.
California Senator Barbara Boxer wants to give schools more money for security. She also wants to make greater use of the National Guard to help keep schools safe. She's introducing two bills, one to devote an extra $20 million a year to school security grants to pay for things like metal detectors. The other would reimburse states for putting National Guard members to work at schools. San Diegans are invited to help decorate more than 24 Christmas trees in memory of the Newtown shooting victims. The San Diego Association of Realtors is setting the trees up in front of its building in Kearny Mesa tomorrow. The address is there on your screen. There will be 20 miniature trees, 6 full-size trees, a tree for each child and adult killed at Sandy Hook Elementary. Decorating will go on all day with a tree lighting ceremony at 5:30 in the evening. Messages and mementos for Newtown will also be collected. Temperatures are expected to plummet tonight, according to the National Weather Service. A frost advisory goes into effect at 10 p.m. And San Diego's Winter Homeless Shelter is looking for donations of blankets, coats, and socks. They're being collected at the shelter at 16th and Newton. A multinational semiconductor company is shining the spotlight on San Diego today as Soitec officially opened its largest solar panel manufacturing plant in North America. The opening happened just a year after the company bought and renovated a 176,000 square foot building in Rancho Bernardo.
We proclaim this as Soitec Day in the city of San Diego in recognition of your significant investment in clean technology manufacturing.
Mayor Bob Filner was among the many dignitaries on hand for the dedication. Soitec invested nearly $150 million to turn this industrial space into a state-of-the-art solar panel manufacturing facility.
1, 2, 3.
Company founder André-Jacques Aberton-Herré says the building's transformation is impressive, but the jobs that came along with the plant are generating the most interest.
So we had 20 employees in San Diego in January. Today, we employ 125 people in this factory. When production will reach its full capacity, 450 people will be employed directly here.
The company makes solar panels that capture and concentrate sunlight before channeling it to semiconductors. Company officials say that makes the panels 2 to 3 times more efficient than photovoltaic panels you might see on a home or a business. Those panels will end up in large solar farms in San Diego and Imperial counties. Company officials say they're happy to be part of San Diego's growing clean technology cluster, and they're pleased that they can help California meet its renewable energy goals. California Public Utilities Commissioner Timothy Simon says establishing a manufacturing base in San Diego helps solidify the state's position as a green energy leader.
This will be a hub actually for the region. So not only will California be able to supply solar panels for the power purchase agreements and contracts we have in this state, but it'll also play a pivotal role in neighboring state developments as well.
The company produced the first solar panels at the facility back in October. Federal nuclear regulators demanded more information from Southern California Edison before it moves forward with its plan to partially restart the idled San Onofre nuclear power plant at last night's public meeting in Maryland. Peggy Pico has details.
In yesterday's very technical hearing, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission demanded better analysis of safety monitoring tools and more in-depth data before allowing Southern California Edison to restart a portion of the San Onofre nuclear power plant at partial power. San Onofre has been idle for nearly a year after damaged generator tubes caused a small radiation leak. Joining me with what's at stake and the possible next steps is Martha Sullivan, former staff member of the California Public Utilities Commission and now a citizen activist. Martha, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You've attended numerous hearings, protests over San Onofre, and you monitored yesterday's meeting online in Maryland. What is the NRC's major concern?
Well, I would say, I mean, the NRC's major concern is safety. I mean, that's what they're tasked with. They're tasked with the safety of our nuclear facilities. I will also say, from my long experience, that the NRC is very concerned with protecting our nation's nuclear industry. So that's a primary concern of theirs as well.
Safety of San Onofre and protection of the
nuclear power industry.
Okay. How are the NRC's concerns, especially last night, which the concerns, the safety concerns, how are they aligning with public opinion as far as you're concerned?
You know, this is very interesting because the last two public meetings that the NRC has held, which have been more technical review meetings, the NRC staff has actually asked questions that have been raised by citizen advocates for the last, several months. So it's actually kind of heartening that they seem to be sort of paying attention, and maybe they feel like, they've got some cover since they have, us on the outside really pressuring and really pushing the NRC to do a thorough, impartial review of Edison's proposal to restart these defective reactors.
Well, speaking of Edison, Southern California Edison, who operates the plant, has again refused our request to be interviewed, but sent a statement saying, in part, safety remains our top priority. So they also say that as well. In the meantime, the California Public Utilities Commission is investigating Edison's cost to ratepayers who are still being charged for this power, even though the plant has been offline since January of last year.
That's correct.
So where does that stand now as far as the CPU and
the CPUC has just opened its own investigation into the idling of San Onofre since last January, and the CPUC's constitutional mandate is to guarantee safe and reliable electric service at reasonable rates. So that's the core of their investigation, although they don't have any jurisdiction over nuclear safety. They still have to look at that safe and reliable service aspect. Their primary focus is on reasonable rates. And, as you've pointed out, we basically are now up to $1 billion that we spent on these steam generators that Edison replaced.
Yeah, let me just bring that up. San Onofre steam generators were actually overhauled, including the problematic ones, Unit 2 and 3, within the last couple of years. That's at a cost of $670 million. So that money was spent to no avail, it seems. How much is it expected to cost to get San Onofre working again, including those two units?
Well, that's still kind of a big mystery because Edison has proposed a restart to the NRC, but the NRC is not responsible for cost or rates. So we don't know how much this is going to cost us. What we do know is that Edison has admitted that it spent, going on $400 million this year, in addition to the almost $700 million they paid to replace these steam generators. They've spent $400 million this year because these steam generators failed.
San Onofre, Edison says, is the largest voltage support in the region, and they call it, quote, critical to the state's energy needs. Is there any other place that can generate that kind of energy for us? The
California Independent System Operator doesn't agree with Edison, because they're already planning for 2013 without San Onofre, and they've already identified the retired Huntington Beach power plant not to generate electricity, but to operate as what's called a synchronous condenser to provide that voltage support. So there's plenty of ways to provide what San Onofre did in a much safer, more reliable, less costly way.
Okay, Martha Sullivan, thank you so much for talking with us tonight.
Thank you, Peggy.
Hometown golfing champ Phil Mickelson has decided not to play ball with San Diego's hometown baseball team, the Padres. He says he's not going to be part of the ownership group that bought the team last summer. The group had been holding a space for Mickelson, but he says he can't match the commitment level of the rest of the group, so he is bowing out. Authorities are confronting a rise in maritime smuggling of illegal immigrants and drugs from Mexico up the California coast. In early December, the stakes were suddenly raised. A U.S. Coast Guard member was killed during a confrontation with suspected smugglers. From our Fronteras desk, Jill Replogle introduces us to one man with a unique view of the trend.
The sun is sinking off the coast of Ocean Beach. It's been a long day for Captain Eric Lamb and his boat rescue team.
Well, we got a call early this morning about 3 a.m. About a boat on the beach here.
The call was from U.S. Customs and Border Protection. This branch of the Department of Homeland Security contracts out with private companies like this one to pick up abandoned smuggling boats from the beaches and rocky cliffs of Southern California. Agents suspect this boat was smuggling illegal immigrants into the U.S. from Mexico. The smugglers apparently abandoned it in the surf, which is common.
Actually, at the time we were in high tide and the boat ended up going all the way, pretty much all the way underwater several times and filled up with sand and then got buried in the sand. So it's been quite a fiasco to get it out today.
Lamb works for a company called Vessel Assist. It's like AAA on the water. Picking up smuggling boats is only a small part of his job, but he's dug out, towed, and trailered a lot of them.
In the last 9 years with this company, we've pulled probably well over 150 boats off the beach up and down between here and L.A.
And Lamb doesn't just pull boats off the beach. Ironically enough, some smugglers are members of Vessel Assist and have actually called him for a tow when they've broken down or run out of gas at sea. Lamb picks them up and calls the authorities. Law enforcement agents and people who work with them, like Lamb, have seen a spike in illegal traffic along the Southern California coast. 2012 was a record year, with more than 200 smuggling attempts between the U.S.-Mexico border and San Luis Obispo County. Officials have arrested close to 2,000 people suspected of maritime smuggling over the past 5 years. Lamb says he's seen a lot of changes in the smuggling business.
For several years, we had nothing but Mexican pangas coming up.
Pangas are open-hold boats easily packed with people or drugs. They take off from Ensenada or elsewhere in Baja California, race up the coast at night, and drop off their cargo on deserted beaches. Abandoned or seized boats used to get auctioned off, but the same ones showed up again and again. So now they're chopped to pieces.
They've managed to just about deplete the fleet in Ensenada.
These days, smugglers are becoming more inventive, using a variety of boats, even pleasure craft, the kind of boat you might see kids wakeboarding behind. And smugglers are going farther out to sea and further up the coast.
As we've increased our response capabilities in the San Diego County area, Orange County and Los Angeles County area, we've seen them progressively move further north into Ventura, Santa Barbara, and even San Luis Obispo County.
For coastal law enforcement, it's getting more dangerous. In early December, Coast Guard member Terrell Horn III was killed when 2 suspected smugglers rammed his boat near the Channel Islands. They fled but were captured in San Diego waters. Following Horn's death, Coast Guard officials say they haven't made any major changes in the way they operate. They say the job has always had risks.
I don't think it's any more dangerous than it was before. We're always concerned about the safety of our law enforcement officers, and they're trained to handle the situations. BMC Horn's death was a tragedy, an absolute tragedy, and certainly makes us all re-examine what we're doing to make sure we're doing it safely and effectively.
But Coast Guard members carry guns. Lamb doesn't. He says his boss has been talking to the Coast Guard about having one of their boats go ahead of Lamb's when it seems there might be danger.
I'll be out there, no one else, just me, and quite honestly, we realize now there's nothing stopping them from, I pull up alongside to get ready to get them, and they, shoot me, throw me over the side, load everything in my boat, and they can go anywhere they want with the boat.
The 2 Mexican nationals arrested in the killing of Coast Guard member Horn were indicted last week by a federal grand jury in Los Angeles. Jill Replogle, KPBS News.
I'm Gwen Eiffel on the next News Hour. Connecticut's Joe Lieberman on the shootings in his home state and his 24 years in the U.S. Senate. That's Wednesday on the PBS News Hour.
Southern California's coast has been a no otter zone for about 25 years, thanks to a ban intended to protect the endangered animals from oil spills. But the otters haven't been paying attention, swimming south, getting captured, and taken back north. No more, though. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has lifted the ban. Otter experts say the move will help rebuild the endangered otter population. Like most years, 2012 generated a slew of new words and phrases. Peggy Pico finds out a few of the top picks from Away with Words co-host Grant Barrett.
The presidential election, social media, technology, and pop culture are just a few sources for 2012's newest additions to the public lexicon. Here to catch up on the latest neologism is Grant Barrett, co-host of Public Radio's Away with Words. Grant, thanks for coming in and giving us a sneak peek to the New York Times 2012 list of words that you just wrote.
My pleasure.
So we're happy to have you here. Before we get started on the new words, what does it take for a word or a phrase to make it onto your list?
It has to be significant in the year in question. It doesn't have to be brand new, but it has to be important. It has to be a part of the public discourse. It has to be highly relevant and something you've probably heard of. For example, several election phrases emerged this year, including one that's not even a word. It's actually a number, 47%. Why is this significant? Well, do you remember the surreptitious video that was caught of Mitt Romney talking to big donors? And he mentioned that 47% of the country would never vote for him because all they wanted was handouts. That's the 47%. And people refer to that now as right. I'm either part of that or not part of that. Also in your election category came up the term Etch-a-Sketch moment. What does that mean? Well, it's another one of those Romney campaign kind of awkward moments where an aide to Mitt Romney suggested that if the campaign wasn't going well, they could just shake the Etch-a-Sketch and start over. And of course, the Obama campaign leapt on that and said, "Oh, you mean he's a flip-flopper and he's just changing his point of view just to get elected, even if he doesn't really believe it." Or in this case, an Etch-a-Sketcher. Right, you could erase it. From the science and tech world, fracking, it's been around the term, but a lot of people say it's as bad as it sounds. Can you tell us what it is? Yeah, fracking is high-pressure water that is pushed into the ground in order to release oil that is trapped in shale. That's a really short version of it. I've been tracking this word for 10 years, and it really came to the fore in 2012 because of possible health issues related to fracking. And also concerns about, we're looking at video here where it goes into the shale, and they actually break apart that shale with chemicals and sand and basically force apart the shale so that you can release a natural gas. The concern is over the water, correct? That's right, because so that process may leak chemicals or oil itself into the water, the drinking water. Okay, this next term is something that I actually believe I suffer from. Nomophobia, I believe you call it. Tell us what that is. Nomophobia. It is no more phone phobia. It's a fear of not having your phone. You left it in your other coat, you left it in the car, you left it at the office, you don't have it, and you're like, oh, I can't check my email, I can't check my voicemail. You feel like you're disconnected from the world. That's nomophobia. I have it, and I've often said, you know, I would rather lose my wallet than lose my phone. Yes, so I think that qualifies for that. Many of us. This is one of my favorite things to come out of 2012. Social media gets the credit for this phrase called pet shaming. Tell us about that. Well, this is where people will, so you've got a dog who misbehaves, maybe does a number 2 on the carpet or something like that. And so you put a sign around its neck saying, I went number 2 on the carpet. And then you take a photo and you post it to Facebook or Twitter so the world can see you shaming your dog. And people do it with their cats, and their whole website's built around pet shaming. It's pretty new, right? It is kind of new, and I think what it responds to is this common experience that we have with our pets. We all have had this where the pet didn't do the thing it was supposed to do or did something that you didn't expect. So it's just kind of saying, oh, look, my dog does number 2 where it shouldn't also. I think it's kind of cute. I learned this next term that you had on your list, and I was happy to see it there for my 16-year-old niece at her high school. It's called YOLO. YOLO was the #1 term that I got from high school students in San Diego this year. I do speaking engagements in schools talking about slang, and that was by far and away. It means you only live once, and it's kind of a carpe diem sentiment. You're about to say or do something unwise or kind of foolish, and so you might say, oh, YOLO. And one of the kids in one of the classes in the Southeast, he said to me that the only good response to YOLO is yo-yo, you're on your own.
You're on your own and YOLO. And actually, it's traveled all over the nation. I actually picked it up in Los Angeles with my niece, and then also again in Cincinnati with another niece. So it's just wildfire. It's a good one. Are there any other words that we should be have our ears perked up to as far as on your list?
Well, one that I really liked this year was the word doxing. It's an old term. It means to document somebody. It means to find out everything that you can about them and then to release the naughty bits or the embarrassing stuff to the public.
Yeah, I'm sure lots of people would like to do that. Former boyfriends and girlfriends. Well, Grant Barrett, co-host of Public Radio's A Way with Words, thank you so much for this
My pleasure.
sneak peek.
Very good.
Earlier, we told you a frost advisory has been issued for San Diego County. Temperatures, in fact, are going to drop into the 20s and 30s tonight. It's going to stay cool tomorrow, partly cloudy along the coast. Look for some sunshine and 60-degree temperatures inland. Also, it'll be sunny in the mountains, and daytime temperatures should reach the 50s there. And the Weather Service says it will be sunny in the deserts. Temperatures should be in the 60s. Tonight's stories are on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks very much for joining us, and have a great evening.